Hey everyone, it's Patch 3.24 in Acropolis, and today I want to talk about what I personally think is going to be one of the better farming strategies for the first week of the season. This is going to be a strategy that over the past few seasons has actually been massively buffed, with this league making a lot of drastic changes to everything related to this strategy, which in my opinion is going to boost this to the pinnacle of money making, and it's personally going to be the strategy I'm going to be doing at the start of the season to make all of my currency. Today we're going to be talking about an unlikely trio of Betrayal, Breach, and Heist. These have typically been mechanics that most people really never touched or never were really interested in, but in my opinion, I think with all the current changes that are happening to this season, that these are going to be cracked ways of making money. And the nice thing about this strategy is that you're going to be making money all the way from the start of tier 1 maps, meaning you should be making a decent amount of money as you're progressing up to tier 16 maps, which should make your progression just that much easier for whatever build you're playing. So the first thing I want to mention here is going to be all the changes and why this is going to be so good in my opinion this league. So first off, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Betrayal. Now most people just didn't want to touch Betrayal, deal with it, because one, it was too complex, and two, it basically required you to have a rank in TFT, meaning you had to farm vouchers to actually get anyone to trust you with their items to be able to sell the benches, as the benches was where all the money came from. Not only that, but Betrayal was annoying to do, as you had to sit there and wait for people to actually want to buy your services, and then you had to deal with people, and it was just not a comfortable experience. Well, Betrayal has been completely reworked this season to where all of the members inside of a mastermind safe house just give Scarabs, and well, due to how many Scarabs are going to be dropping globally and how many Scarab strategies are looking to pop up, I don't really think you're going to ever care about that, meaning you don't care about any of the members anymore. And the Ailsling effect, which was one of the most powerful crafting options in the game, has been turned into an item that just simply drops with Catarina, meaning you just go and farm masterminds, kill the boss, and then if you get a veiled chaos orb, which is going to be the new Ailsling slam, you just sell it for a lot of profit. Not only that, but the rest of the Catarina drops, especially at the start of a season, are going to be very, very lucrative. And to add on to all of this, they can sometimes get paradoxicas while doing the other safe houses, which with current popular builds is looking to be a pretty expensive item, meaning you should be able to make a lot of money just from everything Betrayal related. Finally, there are going to be quite a lot of people looking to buy veiled items at the start of a season to unlock all their bench crafting options, especially the people who sell those services on TFT, meaning some of the veiled items can very easily go for 5 to 10 chaos, and you can see them starting in white maps, meaning you can get some pretty decent amount of money here and there. With the removal of you needing to go TFT, I think Betrayal is now one of the single best strategies for most people, especially since the way you do Catarinas has completely changed, not requiring you to actually care about any of the intricacies of setting up a proper board or trying to level up your Ailsling to level 3 to actually be able to sell her craft. Next, let's talk about Breach. Now, Breach, in my opinion, especially with the new Scarabs that are coming out, is going to be really, really good. Breach did get nerfed a few seasons back to where it's not as good as it used to be anymore, but Breach still offers you a lot of free experience if your build can handle it, meaning you can level a lot faster, especially when you combine it with the experience you get from Betrayal, since Betrayal also gives you a lot of experience, meaning you can level up faster than the majority of people. And with the recent nerf to 5-ways, to where I personally believe 5-ways are just completely dead and they're just not going to be good anymore, I think flawless breach stone runs are going to become the meta, or somewhat become the meta for XP farming, meaning that the flawless stone should be worth even more than before. At the same time, quite a lot of breach uniques are looking to be worth a lot of money, meaning that all the loot that you're going to get from breach is going to be worth a decent chunk. Finally, we have Heist. The biggest buff to Heist was simply that they made selling contracts a lot easier. Previously, you had to interact with TFT to sell your contracts, otherwise you had probably some of the most miserable time in PoE. With us getting the new bulk section for contracts on the website, it's easier than ever to actually sell off your contracts and get all the profit out of them without you having to go through 300 steps to actually get someone to buy them. Heist has always been really good. It's just you had to interact with TFT to sell your contracts, meaning that most people just didn't want to do it or didn't think the effort was worth it. With us just being able to sell it, I think Heist is probably going to be one of the best additions to most farming strategies as just a I have a few additional points, I don't know what I want to take kind of mechanic. With all this out of the way, why don't we talk about the Alice tree you'd want to set up for this and how you'd go about putting this together in League Launch. So the way I'm going to describe this tree to you is going to be the order in which I'd recommend for you to take all this at the start of a season. We're going to first start off by going to the right to get obsessed with vengeance. This is going to give us a 40% chance to see you in every single map we do, meaning you get some veiled items, which might be upgrades for you, and potentially you could sell some of them. For example, if you get Elrond early on, you could sell his rings for probably 10C plus for an unveiled version of them. Then we're going to keep pathing through the breach wheel, which is going to give us a lot of breaches for free, as well as making them have more monsters in them, meaning if you can handle these breaches, you're going to get a decent amount of experience, letting you progress faster. We're going to come over to bribery, which is going to give us a lot more veiled items, meaning we're going to be able to sell even more to other people or potentially use it to unlock our own bench faster, as well as effective leadership, which is going to be important to us getting more Catarinas. This is going to allow you to see the leader more often, which is what we're looking for, as we want to keep imprisoning the leader to get Catarina progression. Then we're going to go up and get ourselves Tortured Dreams and Quarter Tots. This is going to give you more Shailas in your breaches and more Eshes in your breach, which in my opinion I think are going to be worth a lot of money at the start of a season, especially with Voices Storms being very popular. We're going to come over to the next breach wheel, get ourselves Test of Loyalty, which means we are going to get a lot faster rankings on all the Betrayal members, meaning we get to do Catarinas faster, as well as these 2 points here for more Yoon chance. Unfortunately, you could only hit a 96% Yoon chance, which is really weird considering, for example, for Einhar, you can have a 106% chance. So unfortunately, there is a 4% chance you will not see a Yoon in your maps, and it just is what it is. We're then going to go up to get within their grasp and Eve Invasion. Eve Invasion just gives you a lot of breaches, which is really fun. Within their grasp is not going to be that useful this early on, but once we get to tier 16 and once we do the proper juicing strategy for this, we're going to get a decent amount of Shayula breach runs from this, which is going to very much showcase how worth it this node is. And then we're then just going to keep pathing up the top side of the tree, getting intelligence gathering, so we get ourselves faster intelligence, and finally getting otherworldly artifacts for more density and a chance to finally get breach uniques, meaning you can potentially just randomly see a Voice of Storms in your maps, or for example, Severed in Dreams. Once you have all these points, from there, we can do one of two things. You can either start pathing through Power Struggle and Flash Breach, which will give you more breach chances. If you can't handle Flash Breach, you can always take Heavy Breach, which is going to make your breaches substantially slower, make them easier to handle on a lower budget setup. And then we're going to get ourselves Synchronism and Drawn to Power, as well as going over to Supplication and getting ourselves this for guaranteed shrines in our maps, which is going to mean that we're going to now get acceleration shrines and tank shrines all over the place, making our maps a little bit easier. Or you can go for Zishtula first, which is going to be a very rare chance for this to actually happen. But if you did get yourself a Zishtula in your map, this will give you quite a lot of splinters if you actually kill it. Finally, as we're getting ourselves closer to tier 16 maps, you would then either choose to pick up Eater Worlds or Searing Exarch as your influence of choice. Personally, I like Searing Exarch to start a season because the currency is worth a little bit more money and Eater Worlds isn't as good early on. But again, we're right next to both of them, so just pick whichever influence you like more. And finally, and you do not want to pick these points up until you're in tier 16, is to go around and get all of the heist nodes, as we want to sell these as much as possible due to heist not really being worth it and to contracts not really being sellable unless they're specifically item level 83 contracts. With all this means you're going to get yourself a lot of Yoons as you're progressing, meaning you can sell a lot of veiled items, and you're going to get yourself some breaches, meaning you can progress a lot faster due to all the experience, assuming you can handle them. Next, we should talk about how you're going to be setting up your maps for all this. So there's going to be two separate setups. One is going to be the budget setup, which I'd recommend for you to try and do as you're progressing through white and yellow maps. And then the second one is going to be the proper setup, which I would only recommend to do in tier 16 once you have a decent amount of money. So the budget setup is going to be very simple. You're simply going to want to include a Scarab of Intelligence on every single map you do. These are going to be a polished tier Scarab, meaning they should be fairly plentiful and fairly common, meaning they'll be cheap. And what these are going to do is they're going to give you 150% increased intelligence from all the members, which means you progress to Catarina 2.5 times faster. And this is going to be the bread and butter of how we're going to farm so many Catarinas. What you're then going to want to add on to this is going to be 2 Rusted Breach Scarabs, just because they give you 2 additional breaches. And yes, you can stack Scarabs now with the new Necropolis changes, meaning that I can put 2 of these on every map for 4 breaches. Now, they have changed the 5th slot in terms of how you acquire it, and you do not need to do a 5-way carry anymore to get your 5th slot. You now instead need to do a tier 17 map. I'd highly recommend for you to try and do this or get carry through a tier 17 map as soon as you can, as this slot is going to make a fairly big difference in terms of you being able to extract more money out of this in tier 16. And as for the proper setup on what I'd recommend to do once you have enough money to be able to afford these Scarabs, is to 1, still use a Scarab of Intelligence, as is the backbone of this whole strategy. And then we're going to be changing to Breach Scarabs for a Breach Scarab of Lordship, meaning every single breach will always have a Breach Lord inside of it. And a Breach Scarab with a Dreamer, meaning they're always going to be Shayula breaches. So we're always going to get a guaranteed Shayula in every single breach that we do. Now, I need to point out to you that you're going to really need to make sure you have Chaos Res for this, as Shayula will slap you if you do not have Chaos Res. So maybe hold out on all this until you are good on your Chaos Res. Maybe somewhere around 30 to 40% Chaos Res should be fine. And just use Rusted Breach Scarabs until then. And I would not recommend to do this until you have your 5th slot, as our last slot is going to be a Breach Scarab to get more breaches. Without 5 slots, I don't think that the Shayula and guaranteed Breach Lord Scarabs are actually worth it, as you're not going to get enough guaranteed breaches to really make up for how costly these Scarabs are going to be, as I assume they're going to be worth a decent amount of money at the start of a season. So just simply keep using the Rusted Breach Scarabs until then, but your ideal setup will just be Intelligence, Lordship, Dreamer, and 1 Rusted Breach Scarab with 5 slots. Finally, for a map device, you're going to always want to pick the Heist crafting option as your option of choice. Do not pick this until you get to tier 16 maps, as it's going to be completely pointless to do, just because you are going to not get item level 83 contracts, which are the ones that are actually worth something. And until you get yourself to tier 16, if you want to juice your maps a little bit more, is to instead use the breach option for a few additional breaches, just to either get more experience or to potentially get a few more splinters from the breaches. You can skip out on doing that and just completely ignore your map crafting option until tier 16. That's completely up to you. But if you can do a few Catarinas while progressing through white and yellow maps and you do get a little bit lucky with the drops, you should have enough money to put breaches on there to get yourself a little bit more experience. And to add on to all this map setup, let's talk about the maps really quickly. So you can basically run whatever map you want. This does not have any requirements at all. So the nice thing about it is it's going to synergize very nice with all the map progression you're going to be doing. And then once you get to tier 16, just simply pick whichever layout is your favorite. Unfortunately, we do not know how the Veiled Chaos Orb will drop. We do not know what level Catarina is going to be exclusive to. I'm going to make a very plausible guess here that it's most likely going to be tied to tier 16 Catarinas only, meaning you are going to want to make sure to do tier 16 maps when you are finally done progression. But we just unfortunately will not be able to know this information until we get into the new season. Now, next, let's talk about how to actually do these maps. Now, I'm going to talk about this from two perspectives. I'm going to first talk about the breach and the heist setup, and then we're going to talk about the betrayal setup second, as that is going to be a little bit more convoluted, but still not that difficult. So your maps in terms of breach and heist is going to be very simple. Just simply step over the breaches and then just kill as many monsters as you can. One of the changes that are really nice for breaches is that you can now just simply walk over the clasp hands that sometimes spawn inside the breaches, and you don't actually have to click on them, making your life a lot easier and reducing the clicks that you need to do while you're killing enemies. Be very careful of these breaches, as if your character is not geared enough, they might be very difficult. And if you are struggling with them, I would recommend to try and pick up heavy breach as soon as you can, as it's going to make the breaches slower, meaning less monsters are going to spawn. If you are having issues with the breaches, you can simply just skip them for a while, just ignore them, and just simply focus on the betrayal portion of the setup. And then for the heist portion of this, you're not going to really see heist until tier 16, because it's just not going to be worth your time to interact with heist, just because it's not going to be worth your time to get contracts on your maps that are not item level 83. But once you do start putting smugglers caches on your maps, you're simply just going to go around and click on all of them, pick up all the blueprints, pick up all the contracts, and pick up all the rogue markers. Ideally, you want to go and buy yourself a rogue trinket that gives you 10% more rogue markers, and your slot for the trinket will immediately unlock as soon as it gets put in your inventory. And I'd highly recommend this. It's going to give you a decent amount of additional money, as pennies are worth quite a lot of money at the start of a season, especially now that we know how good Simplex is and some of the new heist bases actually are. Finally, let's talk about how to actually do betrayal. So betrayal used to be a very complex mechanic that was very difficult to do and required a lot of thinking and a little bit of learning to properly utilize. Well, this has been made substantially simpler. Before, you really needed to make sure you focus on getting an Ailshling into your research and specifically upgraded to tier 3. You do not need to do this anymore, as she does not give you the Ailshling slam anymore, and all we need to do is simply just get to Catarina. The way betrayal works is going to be very simple. You have 4 separate safe houses, and each of the safe houses is always going to have a leader. This leader will never naturally spawn inside of your maps unless they're the only person assigned to that current safe house at a given time, which is basically rarely going to actually happen, meaning you're most likely going to always see their subordinates. Now, their subordinates sometimes do have a chance to just pull the leader into the encounter, as sometimes additional betrayal members will spawn in the middle of a fight. And with effective leadership, this will double the chance, meaning you'll see them more often. All you want to do is simply just do the 3 betrayal events per zone that you're in. And what you want to do is, if you're given the option of ranking them up, you always want to rank up every member. And if they're already level 3, you simply want to imprison them, which will remove them for a few turns. And each turn just means every single betrayal event that you do is 1 turn. And then that will give you a lot of intelligence towards the safe house. And as soon as the bar for the safe house fills up, you immediately want to go do the safe house and then fight the leader. Now, if you end up encountering the leader while you are doing your maps, if the leader actually spawns in, you want to make sure you upgrade their rank, as it's going to be very important that they're going to be tier 3. Or if the leader is already tier 3, you can just imprison them if the other people that are also connected to that safe house are already tier 3, as the leader will simply just be replaced with a different member that's already tier 3, meaning you're getting a lot of really fast safe house intelligence and you'll still have a tier 3 leader. It's okay if the leader isn't tier 3 when you do a safe house. It's just that if they are tier 3, you're going to get substantially more intelligence towards Catarina, as the only way for us to fight a Catarina is to get intelligence to be able to do the safe houses, and then imprison whatever leader is in the safe house, which will then give us Catarina intelligence. Every single time the Catarina intelligence bar at the top is filled, you can immediately go fight the boss, and that's going to be where the majority of the money from the betrayal is going to come in. So TLDR for betrayal, very quickly, just so people don't get confused, is very simple. Do the betrayals through your maps. Pick up any veiled items, either ID them for your own crafting bench progress or sell some of them, which we'll talk about later. If the members are not 3-starred already, upgrade them to 3-star if you're given the option to upgrade, or imprison them if they're already 3-star to get yourself intelligence for the safe house you're attached to. If you ever see the leader come out of the safe house, which will be rare, either imprison them if they're 3-star or upgrade their tier if they're not 3-star. Once you can do a safe house, run the safe house and imprison the leader to get Catarina intelligence. And then once your Catarina bar is filled up, go do a Catarina and fight her for loot. The Catarina fight itself will be relatively difficult, and it's going to have quite a lot of chaos damage in it, which I would highly recommend to make sure you are stacked up on chaos res. It's not too difficult to fight, and it's okay if you end up bricking 1 or 2 attempts at it. You do have 6 portals, so you have quite a few attempts. And again, she is meant to be an endgame boss, so it might take you a few tries to learn her, but if you are doing Betrayal optimally, you effectively can do a Catarina every 4 to 5 maps at a minimum, meaning you're going to see plenty of Catarina, so don't worry if you brick a fight or 2 while learning how to do the fight. Once you do end up killing Catarina, she's going to drop you a plethora of different uniques that should all be worth a decent amount of money at the start of a season. And the thing that we're going to be looking for here is going to be the big ticket item, is going to be a veiled orb. Now, we do not know how these veiled orbs are going to drop. We do not know if they're exclusive to specific item levels of Catarina, as some of her other unique items are exclusive to specific levels, meaning you are not going to see some of her unique drops actually drop unless you're doing high tier maps. But just due to the nature of how powerful the veiled orb is going to be, I can 100% almost guarantee you that's going to be tied to red maps. It's most likely going to be tied to item level 83 Catarinas only, meaning you're only going to see it as a drop in red maps. Now, we do not know how common of a drop it's going to be, but I'm going to assume it's probably going to be around 20%, as that would seem like a fair drop rate to me, meaning that maybe, potentially, again, it's all speculation, every 1 in 5 Catarinas in tier 16 maps that you're going to do should give you a pretty big ticket item that you can sell for quite a lot of money immediately, as veiled orbs should be worth a lot of money due to how powerful their effect is. So with all that out of the way, why don't we quickly talk about the kind of loot that you're going to be expecting out of this farm. First off, from breaches, you're going to get quite a lot of splinters that eventually, once you are doing this in tier 16 maps, you're going to get a lot of Shayula splinters, meaning you're going to get breach stones for Shayula really quickly, which are going to sell for quite a lot of money. You also just have a chance for the breach stones to be dropped by Shayula themselves within their grasp, and you have a very low chance for it to be flawless, which would be a big ticket item that drops that give you quite a lot of money immediately. The other thing you're going to be getting from breaches, outside of a lot of experience and potentially quite a lot of just raw currency, just due to there being a lot of monsters in breaches, is going to be random breach uniques through otherworldly artifacts. This will mean that you're going to randomly see things such as a Voiceless Storms, which should be worth a decent amount of money at the start of a season, or potentially see something like a Severed in Sleep, which should also be worth a lot just due to the Poisonous RS players, as Poisonous RS seems to be very popular. For Betrayal, you're going to be getting yourself quite a lot of different veiled items, with some of these veiled items selling for quite a pretty penny at the start of a season. Some things that you might want to sell are going to be things such as veiled boots and Rin boots, Aileron rings and amulets for the reduced mana cost rolls, any sort of flasks that you get from Catarina, and potentially helmets, as well as the physical taken as fire role is going to be a fairly important role for a lot of builds. These veiled items should be worth a decent amount of money at the start of a season, and a very easy way to deal with these is to simply just get yourself a stash tab, price it to something like 10 or 15 chaos, and just simply dump all of your veiled items into that stash tab, and if someone messages for them, great, and if not, you can simply just reduce the price on the stash tab to something like 5 chaos and see people message you for them then. And then finally, we have Heist. Now, Heist is going to be very simple to deal with. Typically, before you had to go to TFT to sell all of your Heist contracts, but now we are going to have a substantially easier time dealing with all the random Heist contracts that we're getting. So all you're going to be doing with Heist contracts is going to be very simple. You're simply just going to take them and you're just going to shove all them into a quad tab like this. Heist contracts are simply valued based on the requirements on it. So as you can see here, this contract is specifically an engineering contract. Now, in terms of contracts that you're going to be mostly interested in are going to specifically be perception, lockpicking, and deception. Some people will sometimes run perception and lockpicking, but these are not fairly common, but these will be worth a little bit more money than usual. And things such as an engineering contract or, for example, demolition contract are not going to really be worth anything, and you can simply just delete these. Now, in terms of pricing these, it's going to be very simple. Moving forward with the release of 3.24, in the bulk item exchange section of the PoE trade website, there is now going to be a new Heist tab that's going to allow you to specifically be able to bulk sell contracts. All you're going to want to do is to specifically look at top tier of every contract that you're interested in selling. So in our case here, we would look at top tier deception contracts, as top tier just means level 83. We would simply just click on it and see what people are selling them for. And then all we'd have to do, simply set the tab that we're putting all of our contracts into to public. And then we would just simply price one of these contracts. So for example, let's say deception contracts are currently going for 10 chaos each. I would specifically price a single deception contract to 10C and just put it away into a corner of the stash tab so I don't forget about it. What this is going to do is it's going to value every single deception contract that you have in this tab at 10C, meaning all these will show up on the bulk section of trade. So if I wanted to, for example, let's pretend these were deception contracts, buy contracts from this person, I'd see that they'd have about 300 of them, and I could simply just message them and buy as many as I want at once. All you're gonna have to do then, if you get a message for someone wanting to buy deception contracts from you, is to simply just type deception in here, find all of the deception contracts that you have in your stash tab, and simply just sell however many they want. The same thing would go for something like lockpicking, where you'd simply just price this lockpicking contract or whatever lockpicking contracts are currently going for, put it away in a place where you won't accidentally get rid of it, and then simply just sell lockpicking contracts by just searching for lockpicking every time somebody is interested in buying them from you. With all this put together, that should be everything you need to know to be able to do this strategy, and you should be able to have a relatively easy time with this, and you should be able to make a lot of money even starting as early as white maps due to veiled items being worth a lot of money and due to you being able to farm a few Catarinas relatively fast. I'm excited to personally do this myself at the start of a season, and I am a massive Betrayal fan, so I'm glad I can do Betrayal once again. If you have any questions on any of this, feel free to leave a comment in the comments below, and I'd be more than happy to help you as soon as I can. I also stream on Twitch every single day, so feel free to come by Twitch and ask me any questions you have there. And if you do plan to do this strategy at the start of the season, I hope you have a wonderful time with it. With all that said, I hope you cuties enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.